Join us on the program tonight. Very pleased to have with us the former director of the El Paso Intelligence Center, Mr. Phil Jordan. Phil, thank you so much for coming on the show this evening.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Read a story in the Daily Caller yesterday by Matthew Boyle, in which he said that, let me just quote it here, former El Paso Intelligence Center Director Phil Jordan said he thinks this scandal goes as high as Attorney General Eric Holder. I'm curious, what makes you say that? I don't disagree, but what makes you believe that knowledge of Fast and Furious, perhaps even planning of Fast and Furious, goes higher than acting ATF Director Ken Melson?
Okay, I don't have firsthand knowledge
Sure.
that Mr. Holder is involved because I'm out of the department. However, any program of this magnitude, any program that has international ramifications, in this case, sending arms to Mexico, must have the approval of the Department of Justice. Now, the way the chain of command works is that Mr. Melson would send the proposal to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General would have it reviewed by the Deputy Attorney General, who would also have it reviewed by other deputies assigned to the Department of Justice. And that's the way it works. I mean, it's not a secret. That's the way it works with any law enforcement, federal law enforcement entity that reports directly to the Attorney General. For example, the DEA administrator reports to the Attorney General. Mm-hmm. We cannot. And when I was with DEA, let me simplify this. If we had a reverse sting, this is when we're telling the traffickers that we have all the dope in the world and they have the money, right? So we want to take their money. In order to show them a sample, just a sample of, say, a gram of heroin, the administrator for the DEA would have to approve it. Okay? And it would have to be also some sort of agreement with the Department of Justice. Everything has to be cleared through the Department of Justice. The agents that were doing this, Fast and Furious and gun running in Phoenix that ended up killing two of our agents, or federal agents, they cannot do this on their own. I know some people refer to them as cowboys and all this other stuff, but no, a program of this magnitude has to have the approval from upstairs, and there's no other way. And this is why I believe Congressman Issa is not getting the information, because there is a paper trail.
Well, back on May the 4th, there was a news story that pointed out Assistant Attorney General Lanny Brewer, who's the head of the criminal division, had signed off on a warrant in Fast and Furious. And at the time, there was speculation that, look, Lanny Brewer would have had to have some sort of operational knowledge of this program for him to authorize, I think it was a wiretap in connection with Fast and Furious. And yet the response from DOJ was, in essence, not necessarily. The head of the criminal division signs off on these warrants all the time without knowing the particulars of any cases. Do you?
Oh, no.
No?
No. I mean, no. Nobody signs. I mean, unless the policies have all changed under this current administration. But let me give you another example. Does anybody believe that when the Black Panthers were dismissed, or the charges were dismissed, does anybody believe that the Attorney General and the White House didn't know about that?
Mm-hmm.
It's only, our Creator gave us only one thing when He put us on earth, and that was common sense. And this whole thing doesn't have any common sense in it, and we have violated, unless the Mexican government, which I seriously doubt, would allow weapons to go south so that they can be killed with those automatic weapons. Unless Mexico approved this program, there are serious consequences that are going to happen if the case or the investigation doesn't get covered up.
Yeah, well, and again, going back to that report from back in May, And it's interesting to see what the DOJ's response was back then. This is before we knew, for instance, that ATF Director Ken Melson had asked for weekly briefings on Fast and Furious. It's before we knew that he asked for the IP address of one of the surveillance cameras so he could monitor the feed in real time from his office in D.C. When DOJ was asked about Lanny Breuer authorizing this wiretap, the response was, quote, "The review process for wiretap applications is a narrow assessment of whether a legal basis exists to support a surveillance request that ultimately goes before a judge for decision. These reviews are not approval of the underlying investigations or operations. As the department has stated, the Fast and Furious operation was approved by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Arizona and the ATF Phoenix Field Office. The investigation was subsequently approved by the Multi-Agency Organized Crime and Drug Enforcement Task Force Program. The Attorney General takes the allegations that have been raised seriously, which is why he has asked the Inspector General to investigate, blah, 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 blah." So, 6 weeks ago, Phil, the response from DOJ was this was entirely a local operation.
Well, first of all, you don't take the charges seriously. You stop the program immediately once you find out the two federal agents. You don't conduct an investigation. You stop the program when something has gone wrong on something that has been approved. And the U.S. attorney, every U.S. attorney that I ever worked for on a program like this, they also enter to the Attorney General. Everything has to be cleared at the Department of Justice. It's very simple. I mean, and what happens on situations like this is that the cover-up is worse than well, nothing could be worse than losing two agents' lives for stupidity here. But to cover this thing up is gonna. It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Phil. The other explanation that we've received from the Obama administration so far is that they say the intent was to monitor these guns when they went across the border and somehow track them to the cartels so that they could then bring down the cartels themselves. And yet, from what we understand, law enforcement in Mexico was never notified of this operation. Certainly, Felipe Calderon says he was unaware of Fast and Furious, and I would think that if anybody in the Mexican government was aware, it would be Felipe Calderon. How on earth does that explanation make sense to you? Because I'm trying to figure out how ATF would have jurisdiction to go after the cartels in Mexico, once the guns crossed over the border.
They don't. I mean, that is just a bunch of BS. Let me just tell you this: if you're going to work a narcotic investigation, if you're going to work against one of the cartels in Mexico, you better clear it with the DEA that has the responsibility to coordinate with the embassy and the Attorney General's office in Mexico. Now, this is not to say that we've had cases in the past, previous under customs, and even recently in El Paso under ICE, where they act unilaterally in going to Mexico without the knowledge of the DEA. We cannot work in Mexico unilaterally. You have to coordinate narcotic investigations with the DEA. That's the agreement we have with the Mexican government. Now, let me put it to you another way. Would you think the DEA or the United States government would allow the Mexican federal police to send 10 tons of cocaine into the United States to see how many godfathers we can catch on this side, or distributors? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And the Mexican government, this is why I doubt that they would have approved a program like this, because why would they allow weapons to come into Mexico knowing that they are going to be used against the military and against the federal law enforcement and against the state and local, those that are not corrupt.
Yeah.
But the sooner this administration would have come out and said, "Look, there was a mistake in approving this thing. We're going to stop it," and but now everything is damage control.
Well, yeah.
And the thing that I don't like is the fact that the agents that went forward and testified, and trust me, they were telling the truth. And you know, they're gonna be blackballed. They're gonna be what is it? Well,
blacklisted. Yeah.
And there's one possible consolation here is that if Nelson takes the you know, if they throw him under the bus, then they better have some kind of an agreement that he will not come out and tell the truth.
And cooperate with the investigation going forward. Well, you know, I have a feeling that if Ken Melton resigns, one of the first things you'll see is him take on outside counsel to represent him. Now, Phil, I realize I'm asking you here to speculate, but can you think of a possible motive for Fast and Furious that makes any sense to you from a law enforcement perspective?
Okay, in my 30-plus years of federal law enforcement, this program, and trust me, when I first heard about it, when it first broke,
yeah,
and I didn't believe it. I said, I don't think anybody in the Department of Justice would approve a program like this. I don't believe. I mean, because I've dealt and I worked with a lot of super professional ATF guys, but I never met an agent that had this type of mindset that you could allow weapons of mass destruction in terms of against law enforcement to get into the hands of the bad guys to be used against us. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's just doesn't make any sense to allow 10 pounds of heroin to see where it goes in the United States, and then have all these overdose deaths if people don't cut it correctly. So your question is, I don't have an answer to what motive. I don't. I heard one motive that they were trying to make bigger cases. Well, no, you don't make bigger cases that way.
Yeah. What do you think? And again, Phil, what do you think about the speculation that this was, in essence, a political operation designed to add weight to the argument that our gun laws need to change because our gun laws are what's supplying the Mexican drug cartels?
Well, I heard that. I've heard that on several occasions, including a radio talk show here in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And to play with fire like that for political purposes is a total tragedy, a disgrace. It's an embarrassment. It's a black eye for federal law enforcement, and it has no business. I mean, if you want to go against whatever, let's say hypothetically, whatever NRA stands for, and I know the Second Amendment and everything else. If you want to go against that type of situation, then do it through the congressman. I mean, don't do it through risking agents' lives and you know, like that one agent in Arizona told another agent. He says, "Hey, before you make an omelet, you have to what is it?
Break a few eggs.
Scramble a few eggs." I mean, you know. So in this case, we have Agent Zapata and we have that agent from Arizona. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And if it's used for political purposes, may God forgive those that approve this.
Phil Jordan, the former director of the El Paso Intelligence Center. I can't thank you enough, sir, for coming on the program. I hope that we can talk again in the future.
Yeah, I'll be happy to.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Phil Jordan with us here on Cam and Company.